Hey, thanks very much. It's 5 minutes past the hour. Before we get to Chuck's program, and he has yielded me this important time to share with everyone, I've done it in each hour of the program. I want to take this opportunity to send Margie, my entire family's deepest condolences to Rochelle, to Champ's children, grandchildren, because we lost Champ Hoffman yesterday. He passed away. Longtime WPG Talk Radio 104.1 FM and 1450 AM weekend talk show host. Lewis Champ Hoffman left us yesterday. He passed away following a courageous battle with cancer. And Champ and I spoke on at least a weekly basis, usually several times a week. And he battled. Let me tell you something. He battled. And I didn't keep anybody in the dark. Champ was fighting. He had every belief he was coming back. We were planning, Chris and I and Mike Rubel, that Champ was coming back, and everything was all systems go in that regard. So we were not sandbagging anyone and not letting you know the severity of things. Champ wanted to come back. He did everything he could, to still be here, and he fought, just an incredibly courageous battle. Champ was beloved by thousands of radio listeners. He took great pride in being the king of trivia, and also took great pride in giving away more than $1 million worth of prizes in more than 2 decades. Champ loved to spoil his listeners and award them with various on-air giveaways. I had the privilege of working with Champ at 3 different radio stations for more than 2 decades, most of it here. He loved talk radio at such a profound and passionate level, and the service for Champ is tomorrow at 11 a.m. at the Roth Goldsteins Memorial Chapel and Funeral Home at 116 Pacific Avenue in Atlantic City. Champ was married to Rochelle for 37 years. They were an inseparable team. I spoke with Rochelle yesterday and sent our condolences. Champ was also such a proud dad and such a proud grandfather. Earlier in his life, Champ was a successful restaurant owner and operator, and we're all going to miss Champ so much. And what I want to do is also thank my team. Has been amazing here, from Mike Rubel to Chris Coleman and everyone, Jennifer, everybody here on our team, Woody, who worked straight across from me here, that had a lot of dealings with Champ and really loved Champ, as we all did. And I had several conversations back and forth yesterday with Dave Koski, the president of Longport Media. He and I shared some nice exchanges back and forth. They're doing a moment of silence at some point today for Champ. I'm not sure exactly what time they will do it on station WOND, but we're going to do a moment of silence right here and now, and then we'll transition directly into Chuck's program. I even want to do the moment of silence for a little bit longer, but I don't want to scare Tom McNally, because we have such equipment here, and Champ would appreciate this, that if you literally have dead air for too long, you send alarms and all kinds of things go into effect. Other programming will start because it wants to keep the station on the air, so we could only do it for a certain period of time. But that is our moment of silence. And in this business, in the boxing business, they'll ring the bell. In this business, a moment of silence on radio, when it's spoken word format, it's extraordinary, to do 10 or 15 seconds that we just did. Here's another thing I want to do in memory of Champ. When you called his program, and he took so many calls every single weekend, when you called his program, and all he wanted to do, he helped you when you couldn't get the answer. He just wanted you to win. Just such a kindness there. He didn't want to stump you. There's a lot of people that do trivia. They want to stump people. Champ would give you the answer, basically. He would walk you to the answer if need be. And then the next thing you would hear, and that is the official Champ cowbell. I want to do that one more time. I can't ring it like Champ, but I did my best. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank my brother Chuck Malamut for giving me that opportunity from his program to share our comments about Champ and to send our deepest condolences to his family. And again, His services are tomorrow in Atlantic City at Roth Goldstein's Memorial Chapel Funeral Home at 116 Pacific Avenue. That's, if I'm not mistaken, that's New Hampshire Avenue and Pacific Avenue in Atlantic City tomorrow at 11. The following program is presented by Chuck Malamut, a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley. The information, views, and opinions expressed on this broadcast are those of Chuck. They do not necessarily reflect those of Morgan Stanley or its affiliates. They are current as of the date of this broadcast, subject to change without notice. Neither the information provided nor any opinion expressed herein constitutes a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. This presentation is for informational purposes only. Morgan Stanley, Smith Barney, member SIPC.
Good morning, Harry. How are you today?
Chuck, I'm a little sad.
Yeah, what a great guy, Champ Hoffman. I mean, geez, Harry, because I've known Champ, it seems like, for decades now.
Yeah, well, you know them at least for the whole time we've been doing the
show
together.
I used to listen on Saturday morning. I mean, I had no idea how he was able to get all these different organizations to come up with gift certificates and prizes.
King of prizes.
He worked very, very hard.
Dolphin cruise. It could be a restaurant gift certificate. I mean, passes to Steel Pier. You know what I always say? Whenever, it's just like we've seen at the national level, whenever you have some vacuum, something fills that vacuum. And what you always hope, I mean, like we've seen the prestige of America erode, you hope that vacuum is filled by a force of good. So there's a big loss there.
Yeah, I mean, he'll be certainly missed by all, Harry. But
thanks for your comments, Chuck. And if you would share us, start with the market update.
So, Harry, it seems as if we are in this, what I'll describe as a very, very volatile trading range. We have made very little progress of late. Last week in particular, the indices were all down, and down, fairly significantly in some parts of the world. If you take a look, for instance, the S&P was down about 1% for the week, followed up by yesterday, Harry. Just the
S&P being down, that's a problem, Chuck.
Yeah, it's a problem, Harry. But we'll get to that in a second because I don't want to burst your bubble here. But
it's great for America. If the S&P is down, it's great for America. Only for a few more minutes, though. We can't let it go past November 8th. Go ahead, Chuck.
So, Harry, I mean, pretty much, what happened last week was it was worldwide with all the indices. All the indices down, particularly the Asian markets were down about 2.5%. And one of the things we chat about before, the MSCI emerging markets, which happen to be the best performer year to date, were down about 2% for the week. And everything that's happening with Brexit, we talked about that a little bit last week. That particular index, the FTSE 100, Harry, was down about 2.5% for the week. So, as we got into yesterday, we had another fairly volatile day. The averages opened lower, actually fought their way back. We're trading positive for a brief period of time, and I don't want to use the word rolled over, but at the end of the day, the Dow was down about 50, I believe, Harry. So what is happening here? You have negative earnings updates last week. Now we're seeing some things a little bit different today. Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, Netflix. Those are three to name a few. Johnson & Johnson. That the numbers are coming in.
Netflix went crazy.
Netflix international subscribers.
So many subscriptions, yeah.
The stock was up 20% after hours. So what is happening now? We're starting to see. Looks like some stability in earnings in the banking sector. And that is something that in the financials, that's something that we desperately need if this market is to, sort of forge forward. There was also a pretty disappointing report that came from China regarding trade. We have, again, this ongoing political turmoil here in the U.S. I mean, you kind of described it, earlier today. And we see it every particular day, in and out, who's up, who's not, who's doing what to whom. And so, it's hard to believe that we're only 3 weeks away But I think all of us have become rather exhausted from the whole process. And, so 3 weeks from tomorrow, we're going to certainly know who's going to be responsible for running our country for at least the next 4 years. And
he's going to do a great job. Back to you, Chuck.
Harry, you are a certain. I mean, we're not going to make this show political. You covered it already earlier this morning,
brilliantly, I might add.
You did a fine job, but it's just been awful. This
is not a political statement. This is a nonpartisan statement. This has been for the greatest country on the planet to have an election like this. It's a disgrace. Actually, it's been a cesspool.
Harry, I'd be interested to poll, our parents, that particular generation, and get a read from them as to what they're actually thinking about, and and how despicable
Chuck,
this process has been for basically from the midsummer on.
Your dad and my dad have been looking down on us for decades. What do you think they would think of this? I know what my father would think of this.
They would be appalled with the whole process. I mean, they'd be shaking their heads and saying, to us, like, what happened here?
Yeah.
What was the movie? I think you oftentimes refer to as Network.
Yeah, Network. Mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. And you open up the window, stick your head out, and say, "I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore."
So,
the greatest generation,
that's what's going on here.
The greatest generation is dying off in record numbers every single day. But if those that have already left us, if they could come back, they would say, "And I fought for this. I helped save the world for this."
Yeah, I think that's the most embarrassing thing, Harry. The fact that for those that fought in the various wars, to make our country the number one, country in the world, and to see what has just happened over the last several years, it's enough to make your head spin.
I left the studio for just a moment because Chuck is never hot under the collar, and he didn't ask for it, but I felt like I wanted to provide him with a little more central air to make his stay here very, very comfortable. It's my old hotelier background of wanting to please and to make the surroundings as pleasant as possible. So I may have missed this, Chuck, but I want to make sure you did not do yet equities versus corporate earnings.
So
right?
here's where we are, Harry. I mean, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, the earnings are starting. Last week they weren't particularly good. Now they're starting to turn a little bit, particularly in, like I said, in the financials. So what has to happen is, and you oftentimes refer.
By the way, Chuck,
it's
18 minutes past the hour. Rather than try to truncate this and cut it short, let's take our break. We're going to come right back in just a couple of minutes. He is Chuck Malamut. He is make him your official financial advisor. We're in our 26th year together doing this program, and Chuck has a number of additional years on top of that in terms of doing what he does so well. In the financial services industry. Chuck is managing director and leads his team, the Malamut Group, at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office. You can reach Chuck and his team for all of your financial planning needs by dialing 609-383-2010. This portion of our program also brought to us by the exclusive golf club for the Hurley in the Morning program, the Harbor Pines Golf Club. They have an incredible event that's taking place in the not-too-distant future, and it is the Italian Open. It's been in effect since 2005, and it is incredibly priced at $80 if you're a member at Harbor Pines, and there's so many different memberships that you can look at, and they're doing a Twilight membership still right now. Call 927-0006 and reserve, because I promise you this does fill up very, very quickly. And if you're a guest of a member or just a guest coming from the public, $95. Food and vino will be served on the course. They have an incredible dinner if you want to come just for the dinner, which will be about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 9:30 registration, 11 a.m. shotgun start, 4 p.m. dinner. And they have the Italian Bistro. It's just a wonderful Italian restaurant at Harbor Pines for this event. 609-927-0006. Tell them at Harbor Pines. That Hurley in the Morning sent you. Back with Chuck Malamut in just a few minutes. Don't go away.
East Coast Roofing and Siding, protecting what you love and own. East Coast Roofing and Siding, trust us with your family and home.
Hi, I'm Larry Styler.
And I'm Sean Styler.
Here at East Coast Roofing, family is important to us, and we like spending time with our family and friends by going to Saul's Father-Son Farm in Galloway Township. Saul's Farm has a corn maze, live pig raises, hayride, pumpkin patch, and more now through November 5th. So come out and be blessed by Father-Son Farm, whose theme verse is Psalms 24:1. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. And when you're ready for roofing, siding, and windows, call East Coast at 646-1444 or on the web at eastcoastroofing.com.
If you'll call, we'll show up.
East Coast Roofing and Siding, protecting what you love and own. East Coast Roofing and Siding, trust us with your family and home.
This is Harry Hurley, and I'm with the Mayor, Charles Kane, owner and operator of the Auto Plaza, Egg Harbor Township. Mayor, tell your listeners who are looking for a car, why should they choose the Auto Plaza?
Harry, it's our full-service department, selection, and hassle-free financing alternatives that have set us apart for over 17 years. Over the years, we've been the recipient of many sales and service awards, as well as receiving an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau. It's been a real honor for us. We are now serving a second generation of sales and service customers. Stop in today. You're going to love our staff and experience what makes us different.
For all of your automobile service, parts, and sales needs, call the Auto Plaza at 609-646-2447. That's 609-646-2447. And visit us on the World Wide Web at myautoplaza.com.
The Auto Plaza at English Creek. Roll with Mr. Tire.
Do you have $10,000 or more in outstanding federal student loans? Well, you may qualify to have your entire student loan forgiven with one free call. That's right. If you're a teacher, police officer, firefighter, or work for a nonprofit, you may qualify for new federal programs to have your entire student loan forgiven. Graduate Service Center wants to give you free information on all the programs that can help. And the sooner you call, the faster you can get relief. Get the maximum loan forgiveness, loan reduction, or consolidation available. Plus, find out in the first free call what you qualify for. A loan forgiveness specialist is standing by to answer all of your questions for free. So stop worrying about student loan payments. If you have $10,000 or more in federal student loans, this information could change your life. Call 800-579-4408. 800-579-4408. Wipe out your federal student loan debt. Find out how. Call 800-579-4408. 800-579-4408.
The stakes have never been higher.
If the ballot question passes, 2 more casinos, possibly 3, will close.
Join WPG Talk Radio 104.1 for a live broadcast of the No North Jersey Casinos Coalition's rally at Kennedy Plaza on the Atlantic City Boardwalk, Thursday morning, October 27th at 10:30. The rally will support the defeat of the upcoming November ballot question that would permit casino gaming in North Jersey.
When you look at a gaming market that was once 5.2, 5.3 billion, and now it's about half of that, that's still the 3rd largest gaming jurisdiction in the world.
The rally will be hosted by WPG's Harry Hurley, and you are encouraged to attend and show your support to keep casino gaming exclusive to Atlantic City. It's the No North Jersey Casinos Coalition rally on the boardwalk in Atlantic City at Kennedy Plaza, Thursday morning, October 27th, starting at 10:30. Live on WPG Talk Radio 104.1, South Jersey's talk station.
Hey, wake up with Harry Hurley and drive home with me, Sean Hannity, 3 to 6. It's all happening here on WPG Talk Radio 104.1.
Right before the break, Chuck was talking about equities versus corporate earnings. Time is yours, Chuck.
So Harry, as we mentioned earlier this morning, I think we're starting to see a turn here, particularly in the financials. But, prior to that, equities I think they're kind of stuck here, Harry. It seems as if, if you go back over the last year and a half, we've been able to make some, relatively modest gains in spite of what I'll call the declining corporate profits. Remember, we got to the point in time where you sort of hit that earnings trough. So let's think about this. Think about your friends at the Fed. We've had a very, very accommodative monetary policy.
By the way, the chair is under pressure right now.
Well,
significant pressure.
Yeah, for sure. And the central banks, here and overseas are willing to, continue to engage in these new easing measurements that have been put into place. For the most part, investors have been willing to pretty much look beyond what is happening with the earnings recession, since we haven't seen, I'm going to throw that word out there, an economic recession. So as we look, into the future, we think earnings need to advance for the equity markets to go and push forward to make new highs. So we're still early in the quarter. Right now, like I said, the big banks, J&J came this morning. The news up until today, Harry, has been, I guess, okay. So maybe, today is the day where we kind of push forward. The futures are up fairly significantly pre-market. I think they're up over 100 as a result of what came earlier this morning.
Mm-hmm. Now, Chuck, we can get this in before the break. If we need more time, we can cover it even into the next segment after the break. September Federal Reserve meeting. You don't always hear, in fact, I would say you almost never hear a leading, major party candidate. George H.W. Bush didn't do it, and the Fed, I believe, was messing with him so that he wouldn't be reelected. Donald Trump called out Janet Yellen by name, called out the Fed by name, and said, you are political. You are playing politics. You are keeping these rates artificially low to help, his opponent. And for the first time, I'm starting to believe that maybe to prove they're not political, they might do an interest rate increase at the September meeting. I still lean towards at the not September meeting, at the next meeting, November meeting. I still lean towards that they will not, but I think they're taking the heat a little bit. And of course, he said that he wants her out. So this is, I think, pretty unusual, Chuck.
Well, Harry, if you take a look at the meetings that were released, last week, as far as the September meeting was concerned, they, as you indicated, there's certainly all hands on deck for a December rate increase. But as you got into the minutes, they also showed that the decision not to raise rates at the September meeting, was a very, very close call. I mean, there were those Federal Reserve Board governors that basically voted at that point in time to say, let's get going. And, I'm not sure what the margin of victory was to keep rates unchanged.
Chuck,
but
for those who don't know, do they actually do a Democratic vote? And if 9 people are at the table and 5 say raise and 4 say keep don't, 5 carries?
There's a vote, Harry. And Janet Yellen, runs the Fed. But
does the chair whip the vote, though? I'm going to say yes. You don't have to. I'm going to say yes.
I'm going to say I'm not sure, Harry. How's
I'm
that?
I'm going to say yes. It always seems as though the Fed chair, whether it was Greenspan, Volcker, Bernanke, the Fed chair usually seems to get Bernanke was was Fed chair. I was juxtaposing him. Who was the guy in Too Big to Fail? Who was the Treasury Secretary? I forget his name. I think he deserves more credit than he's ever gotten. I forget his name.
I drew a blank.
I'm drawing a blank myself. But usually the Fed chair, not only are the face and sort of the voice, but I think they do whip the vote. Interesting to hear that they're willing to say how close it was. Do you think it's anything's possible, but do you think that it is likely that there would be a rate increase prior to December?
I'm going to say highly unlikely.
I agree with that completely, although for the first time, as I said a few minutes ago, Chuck, I'm leaving open that it could happen because of the pressure that's being brought to bear. Shouldn't change anything, because if you're doing what's right and you're on your plan and, you're doing what you think, the timing and the market yields, that you should do, then it wouldn't matter if somebody from the peanut gallery is carping. But I think there's a chance.
Harry, there's a very, very strong, possibility. But if I was handicapping it, I'd say there's a 75% probability it won't happen.
I agree.
but there's a 75% probability that in December that it will happen.
And I think it's even higher than that. I put it near 100 because it's being timed.
Well, I always like to err on the side of caution here, and I'm going to say, Harry, just think I think it would be very, very interesting if a couple economic reports come and they're not terribly favorable. What's the Fed going to do come December?
There you go. I still say they raise it 25 basis points. Chuck, we're going to take a brief time out. It's the bottom of the hour. One more power segment straight ahead. Chuck dared to utter the R word just a little bit ago. We're going to ask him when we come back, is the United States economy heading into a recession? How many people believe we ever exited the last one, the Great Recession? And then without it being political, and that requires the talent, the skill sets of one Chuck I. Malamut. We will talk about the November elections, but purely from a financial point of view. As Chuck Malamut continues, a reminder for all of your financial planning needs, turn to Chuck and his team. Tell them I sent you early in the morning. Call 609-383-2010.
Winter is just around the corner, and WPG Talk Radio 104.1 has restocked the 1450 Club with great prizes. Simply get social with us at WPGTalkRadio.com for your chance to win a spiffy new snowblower, a $200 Starbucks gift card for plenty of hot coffee, and a PlayStation 4 so you don't have to go outside and deal with the cold weather. The 1450 Club is powered by Atlantic City International Airport. Flying made simple. Visit WPGTalkRadio.com.
It won't be long before Old Man Winter is knocking on your door. So book your flight today from Atlantic City International Airport to destinations where summer never ends. ACY is your gateway to nonstop warm destinations and One Connect to the white sandy beaches of the Caribbean, Latin America, and Mexico. Skip the hustle and bustle of those big scary airports. Simple parking, simple check-in, simpler fly with ACY. Atlantic City International Airport. Flying made simple.
This is Harry Hurley for All Season Solar, our official and exclusive solar energy provider to the Hurley in the Morning program. They design and they install the most attractive, efficient, state-of-the-art solar photovoltaic systems from the world's leading manufacturers. What I love about dealing with All Season Solar, they're your single point of contact. They do the system design, engineering, your building permits, installation, and the ultimate glorious utility connection day. They take care of everything under the sun so that you can sit back and reap the savings. Call Frank Neal today, 609-317-5491. That's Frank Neal, All Season Solar, 609-317-5491. There's never been a better time to go solar. The benefits are there. New Jersey leads the East Coast and second largest in the entire United States in terms of solar energy panel installation. No deposits, no hidden fees, no out-of-pocket costs. All Season Solar. Tell them Hurley in the Morning sent you.
Getting a great night's sleep is easier and more affordable than you might think. You don't need a new expensive mattress or sleeping pills. You just need to change your sheets. Hi, I'm Scott Tannen, founder of Boll & Branch. We started Boll & Branch nearly 3 years ago to make the world's most comfortable sheets and to make it possible for everyone to afford to sleep better. What makes Boll & Branch sheets different is that they're meticulously crafted from pure 100% organic cotton. And because we only sell online, we've cut out all of the expensive retail markups. That's why our sheets cost less than half of what you'd pay in the store. Everyone who tries Boll & Branch sheets loves them. That's how we have thousands of 5-star reviews. The New York Times and Wall Street Journal have written about us, and even 3 U.S. presidents have Boll & Branch sheets. We guarantee you'll love them too. That's why we let you sleep on our sheets for 30 nights. If you don't, return them and get your money back. Plus, if you go to bollandbranch.com today, we'll give you $50 off your first set of sheets when you use promo code SLEEP. That's $50 off right now at bollandbranch.com. Spelled B-O-L-L and branch.com. Promo code SLEEP. That's bollandbranch.com. Promo code SLEEP.
Hi, I'm Congressman Frank Lobiondo. I believe that my job in Congress is not only to start good things, but to stop bad things from happening. When government bureaucrats refuse to approve a cancer vaccine equally for both girls and boys, I stepped in to change that rule. When my own party held up recovery funds after Sandy hit us, I took them on, and we won. And when veterans were forced to travel out of state for health care, I brought in new local clinics, additional staff, and expanded services. But there's much more to do. My mission is to protect South Jersey's way of life. I've always put South Jersey first, putting people before politics. And I will be by your side no matter what. I'm very grateful to be your congressman, and it's a great honor to represent you in Congress. I'm asking asking for your support on November 8th. I'm Frank Lobiondo, and I approve this message. Paid for by Lobiondo for Congress.
Hi, it's Mark Levin. Join me at 6 this evening. Now back to the Mayor of the Morning, Harry Hurley, on WPG Talk Radio 104.1, South Jersey's talk station.
Hey, thank you. Great one. Back to Chuck in 60 seconds. This portion of Hurley in the Morning also brought to us by Congress Hall. Margie and I just had a wonderful stay. She coined a phrase about 15 years ago that one night at Congress Hall is like a vacation. If you see a picture of me, I'll show it to Chuck during the next break. I look more relaxed than I think I have looked in like a year with the meat grinder that we've been operating under. I just loved it. We had a tremendous stay there, wonderful meals, great atmosphere. We took a tour of the Emlyn Physic Estate from the 1800s. This was amazing. We saw all these incredible things and had a whole tour of every room. We went inside, actually, and had the full tour of the house. Just wonderful. You get a slice of history. You get to just feel the vibe of a property that's been open for 200 years, providing hospitality then and now. When Thomas Hughes first opened the doors at what was called the Big House by the Sea, literally 200 years ago, it's amazing the impact that it has had. The term Summer White House was created at Congress Hall when the President of the United States, President Harrison, did the affairs of state from Congress Hall, and there's a room that bears his name. In fact, we did our event in the early years in the Harrison Room, and we grew up into the Grand Ballroom. So it's just incredible. You'll love it. They won the prestigious 2016. Chuck Malamut will tell you his pedigree as a hotelier is second to none in this marketplace. 2016 TripAdvisor's Certificate of Excellence winner. The 2015, because 2016 is not yet completed and compiled, it's a very complicated, not complicated, but comprehensive process that they do. And Congress Hall last year was the recipient of the number 2 spot on Condé Nast Traveler's 2015 Reader's Choice for top 20 hotels in the Mid-Atlantic and New York, which is incredible. Number 2 to reserve. Dial 888-944-1816. Or you can also reserve and check out availability on the World Wide Web. I can tell you weekends are booked. I checked the next 4 weekends. Friday, Saturday, booked every single weekend for the next 4 weeks at least. So when I got us a Friday night, Margie and I, no special situation. I got it because I booked it 2 months in advance. So when you can plan your time, you can do very, very well. Check out congresshall.com. Chuck, we are now on the U.S. economy, and I hate to even bring this up, but I think some people are sniffing it. I think that, who knows? I mean, we'll hope not. But is the U.S. economy, in your estimation, heading into a recession?
Harry, it's unlikely that it's going to happen. However, I think right now, we need to be very, very suspicious. And I think the economy is somewhat, vulnerable. I mean, GDP, one of your favorite topics. It's been about 3% this year, but the economy could end up, it's been up on average because right now because the numbers are better. That's where we think we're going to be.
But you said for the year it's 3%.
It's been averaging around 3%.
All right. Well, wait. What was GDP in the first quarter?
It was
not even a
no,
percent.
but let's think about this. These stats, all right, where they're coming from. I mean, this is a number that's being reported from the Bureau of Economic Analysis.
Well, I'm called BS. I mean, wait. I mean,
so let's say it's 2%.
And it's not even 2%.
But
by the way, we're in the fourth quarter, right, Chuck? Have we had 2% in the first, second, or third quarter?
We have not. But
no. You're telling me we're at 8% right now? It's going to cume out at 3%?
The mindset is that we're going to be around 3%. But having said that, even if let's say it's not. Let's say it's a 2%.
And it's not. But let's say it is.
So here's what we think will happen. We've talked about oil. And oil has been on a tremendous run this year, Harry. I mean, you think about Brent, up almost 40% year to date, trailing 12 up about 6%. and that's sitting at about $52. If we see a sharp oil price increase, a spike in yields, and that kind of goes back to our discussion with what happens with the Fed, although the anticipation is that if rates do in fact increase, it'll happen more on the short end of the curve, not so much on the long side, so the yield curve would flatten in all likelihood instead of being sloped. And your number one topic that you are on basically 24/7.
Thank you.
The escalating political uncertainties. That could very well happen over the next 3 weeks. So, Harry, I don't think we're out of the woods, so to speak, but I think your listeners need to be very, very concerned that we could very well, in the not too distant future, end up, in some sort of recession. Now, that's not the end of the world because, quite frankly, I don't think all of us sitting here recognize the fact, and I think you said it a few minutes ago, and basically you're on it almost every show. The fact that we have gone absolutely nowhere over the last 8 years, as far as economic growth is concerned. So don't be at all surprised if in fact, the big R word looms in the future.
Which is really cruel, though, because for so many Americans to believe we never exited the last recession, even though, in all fairness, and we do our very best, we're human, but we do our very best to be intellectually honest on this program. That's why I call BS to this notion that for the year we're at 3% GDP when we were fractional in the first quarter, a little over 1 in the second quarter, a little bit over 1 in the third quarter. There's no way you could be at 3 unless you had like 10 0.0 GDP for the fourth quarter, and then you cummed it, and you could say that we would be close to 3. But it's not going to be. I don't even think it will be more than 2 when the whole year is done. But I'm just going by the numbers. I mean, anybody can say we're at 3% GDP, but there's not a single number that literally exists that will back that up. But we try to be honest about this. Anyhow, in this bizarro world.
Yeah, let's talk about your favorite topic.
Well. And what is my favorite topic?
What do you talk about in the 6 o'clock hour every day?
Well, you're talking about the November elections, the geopolitical, issues that are out there, and obviously, the November election looms large, doesn't it?
It does. So, Harry, you probably will run me out of the room.
No, I won't. Because I know what you're going to say.
But
the markets want Hillary.
No,
I know.
No, what I was going to say, Harry, it looks like we will have a Democratic president.
And let's be honest, the markets want that.
The Senate right now looks to be somewhat up for grabs.
Absolutely true.
Which makes the House of Representatives, very, very critical.
Correct.
We think that the House is going to remain in the hands of the GOP. But if the Democrats do, in fact, take control, think about what we're probably going to see here. We're going to see a minimum wage increase. We're going to see a fairly significant tax increases and additional regulations in healthcare and financial services. So
then you will see businesses shuttering their doors. You're going to see people losing their jobs. This is all So if it goes, so if they hit the trifecta,
what'll happen is those events on sort of on a combination type basis could trigger some additional economic and market uncertainty. So I think it's real important that you have split decision here.
I think here's my political analysis, which I'll give only because it fits this financial analysis of November elections and the impact. It's unlikely that Democrats will sweep the presidency in both houses. It is more likely that they will win the presidency and possibly win the Senate because it's the Republicans are defending so many seats, and there are a lot of close elections. Senator Toomey in Pennsylvania. People listening right now, if you look at Toomey in Pennsylvania and a couple other key elections, and I'll tell you all them when we're not on Chuck's time and his show. There are several of these key elections that if I knew which way they were going to go, if Katie McGinney beats Pat Toomey, then it's looking like you could have Because keep in mind, if Hillary becomes president, the Democrats only need 50. They don't need 51. 50-50 tie. And I'll get into this after the break, because if that happens, I'm going to share something with you that will be one of my typical early in the morning predictions. And I think, in fact, I know that I am right on this point. We'll get to that after Chuck's show. Chuck, my guess right now is that the Democrat wins the presidency, even though it's still not over, and I think this election could flip 2 more times in the next 3 weeks because of the amount of information that's coming out on a daily basis about both of the candidates. The House will stay Republican, and it's a pretty close to 50-50 that the Senate could flip. It's very close. But I don't think they would get all 3.
I tend to agree with you, Harry. So basically, let's, what do? There's been a fair amount of positives. The anxiety, that investors have, continues on. They think about this for a second. What we've been through, the political uncertainty, in the U.S. We have a global economy that's been okay. Brexit that we talked about last week, that spillover hasn't affected the rest of Europe. There's been some Chinese growth. It's been relatively stable in the U.S. We've been slowly accelerating. So, investors have been very, very cautious and not willing to take a lot of risks in their portfolios. And you think about the average retail investor has basically stepped aside from the time we had the Great Recession. So, think about what's happened here. We had the collapse in commodity prices. We had the Greek debt crisis. That kind of went away. We had China devaluing their currency. We had Brexit. We had terrorism, which has just been, widespread. We've had a lot of geopolitical uncertainty.
Chuck, go back to terrorism for a second. Do you agree or disagree with this statement that because there is so much terrorism now, markets are not really even affected by it anymore?
Yeah, those shock waves, so to speak.
Remember what a terrorist attack would normally mean?
Gosh. If you go back a decade, it was just awful. Now it's unfortunately it's
terrible.
It's sort of what we've grown to accept.
New norm.
Yeah,
it's a terrible, terrible situation.
So so we think about it. We've been in a relatively volatile trading range. We've moved ever so slightly from the beginning of 2015. We think the backdrop, should be, relatively well spoken for equity performance. We think global growth is going to remain solid. Corporate earnings, as we talked about, look to be, hopefully moving forward today, look to be like we're in a good spot. So, it's not a bad time for equities, certainly. But I think it's something that your listeners need to be very, very careful as to what they own and why they own it, and they need to clearly identify. You think about this for a second, Harry. We're now in October. I'm sensing there, for those that own, mutual funds in a taxable account, there'll probably be some additional capital gains that'll be declared. So you really need to get started now to make certain that, if you can do some tax planning, you do so, to avoid the inevitable. And that's basically paying more taxes next April.
Do you think, I know we're on overtime, Chuck, do you think that nothing has been conventional in this national election, but in years past, you used to be able to sort of predict certain things based on the markets and how they behave in the run-up to a national election. This year seems like nothing that typically you would expect. I guess it looks like all the rules have been changed.
Harry, I think they most definitely have changed. There's, if you think about, what we have witnessed over the last year in particular, and more important, and really the last 6 months, it's something that we've never experienced. I mean, you think about, Donald Trump, a business person who's never been in politics. How often does that ever happen, Harry? Where you have, someone like Donald, you have Donald Trump running for president of the United States. I mean, it's pretty much unheard of. So, yeah. So, putting that aside, and we won't get into who says what to whom and why, but the whole process is nothing short right now of just disgusting. And, Harry, we can't wait.
It has turned a lot of people off.
Oh,
I think the voter turnout is going to be depressed. People are just sickened by this campaign.
It's sad, and we need to. The next 3 weeks can't happen fast enough.
And it's going to be an ugly 3 weeks. It's just the way
unfortunately,
it's gonna be.
You're absolutely 100% correct on that one.
Chuck, as always, outstanding in terms of your market update, equities versus corporate earnings, the September Fed Reserve meeting. We then even got into what will the Fed do prior to December, after November 8th in particular, the U.S. economy. Are we heading into a recession? And also the geopolitical, aspect of the November national elections.
Hey, Harry, thanks for having me. And again, our condolences go out to Champ's family.
Thank you, Chuck. You've been listening to Chuck Malamut. He presents this program each week on this day during this hour. In his 26th year as our official financial advisor for the Hurley in the Morning program, Chuck is the managing director. He leads his team, the Malamut Group, at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office. You can reach the Malamut Group at 609-383-2010, literally for all of your financial planning needs, college building, saving for weddings, vacation builders, retirement planning. Chuck and his team, they handle it all, and you'll be in very, very good hands. The program you've listened to is presented by Chuck Malamut. Chuck is a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley. The information, views, and opinions expressed on this broadcast are those of Chuck. They do not necessarily reflect those of Morgan Stanley or its affiliates. They are current as of the date of this broadcast, subject to change without notice. Neither the information provided nor any opinion expressed herein constitutes a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. This presentation is for informational purposes only. Morgan Stanley, Smith Barney, member, SIPC. We'll be back. Closing comments this hour. Dr. Newkirk in the next hour. Either open forum after we come back from the 9:35 break, or possibly a unannounced Blue Plate special surprise visitor. Yep, and it is confirmed. Atlantic City Councilman at Large Frank Gilliam Jr. coming up at 9:40 this morning, not to be missed. Obviously, tonight we have our award-winning Ask the Mayor program with Atlantic City Mayor Don Guardian. That's tonight. We'll return for double duty tonight in the 6 o'clock hour. Back in a few minutes.